it's changed the way I wake up, the way everything, the way I eat, the way slowly. It's not like you come out of the training and boof, now suddenly you're this new person.
Yeah.
But you learn all these subtle things, and you're starting to reflect about your friends and who you spend time with, and then you start to make different choices and different actions, and then after a while you actually have the life you really want. Here we are.
Yeah, we are.
On a beautiful day. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. Since I've started the podcast, I've wanted to do a podcast around yoga because it's definitely become an integral part of my life. It's something that I've gotten to a point now where I really can't live without it. So, but that being said, I didn't want to just talk to anybody for two reasons. Because I can chat to a lot of people about yoga, but the reason why I wanted to chat to you specifically is because I can definitely sense, like, and we've spoken about this before, that you're really living your passion, and you are so passionate about what you do, and it's clear as day, and you like radiate that. And I think I was reading something yesterday that you posted, and it just kind of articulated that so well about a retreat that you were on and a moment that you had with people. And I think I'll actually let you describe that moment and that what you described in that post. I was like, that's exactly why I want to chat to Joelle.
It's like the subtleness of magic almost. That I was hosting that retreat, and I've now I've made certain decisions in my life that had led me to be where I'm now. And in hindsight, you go like, okay, yeah, it made sense. You can connect the dots. But then when you go into that's just from a thinking space, from an intellectual space. But then when you gather these people and you see the healing happening and the connection happening, and you're like, and I don't want to sound arrogant that I'm doing it, because in the end it's yoga and the people, but there needs to be a sense of, okay, I feel safe in this space to be myself with all these strangers, during retreats or things like that, and during the dinners that we have then, or these events. And then you're like, whoa, I'm facilitating this. Like, it almost makes me feel like it's a big responsibility on the one hand, and also like, just like, astonished that I am doing this work, and that it's such a privilege for me. It's such a privilege for me that I in some way have the ability to make people feel so comfortable, and then the magic just happens. People start to be vulnerable. Yoga is not just physical, we're dealing with the mental layer of your being, the emotional, and we all have our little backpack of things. Some have big traumas, some are working through things, and we all have our own ways of dealing with life and obstacles. And then when you see people connect because they have something in common, and then they can just share their stories around it and their experience around it, then it just happens. And I'm just always very, 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 I feel very honored and very blessed in that way.
Yes, like you say, yoga, I was also reflecting on what yoga is to me, and it's not a very simple answer. It's a very complicated answer, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But after that day retreat that you hosted, I think I'll just tell the story. That moment where I heard you talking about it, and I was like, I need to find out about that and then do it. I'd never been to a day yoga retreat, but it was really incredible in an ineffable kind of way, having people together in a community and being able to, throughout the day, at the end of it, you leave there and you just feel different. And I know you obviously facilitate retreats and you do all those things, and you're not just a yoga teacher in a classroom, which is also incredible. You really embody all the different things yoga has to offer. I want to, if you don't mind, kickstart this with how you got into yoga. I know you got a master's degree in economics, and I'm very curious.
My former life.
Yeah, I want to find out about that transitional phase. So when you started learning yoga to when you decided to teach it, and then when you decided to take the leap, I think 2 years later, and delve into it. Like, break that apart for me and what that was like.
So, I've been working in the corporate environment for around 8 years, but I've always had a passion for people's health, specifically fitness, and I've always been convinced that if you are physically healthy, the quality of your life, you know that when you don't feel sick, you just have a flu, and you're like, oh, and then when you recover from the flu, you're like, oh yes, I'm alive again. Just that prana, that feeling of being alive. So investing in your health, whether it's physical or mental health, has always been just obvious to me, but more from a fitness, personal training space. And then I started practicing yoga myself, more as a recovery. The first time I actually saw a yoga class, I was very judgmental, specifically when I saw it in the gym. I was like, it wasn't like power yoga, it was more like a softer yoga, and which I now really enjoy. But I was kind of like, yeah, that's like chess, you know. Chess is not a sport. That was how I thought about it. But then, I started to just do it during the lunchtime at work because it was the only thing they offered at the gym. I always used to exercise during the lunch break, and I just felt different. I felt different during my exercise the next day, and I feel that yoga kind of creeps under your skin, and you go like, hey, I'm reacting different to the same situation. Like, I'm quite a fast walker, I'm a fast-paced person, so in the street if someone would be like in my way and they would walk slowly, I used to get irritated. And now I'd go, okay, take a breath, walk around it, it's okay. And it was like, whoo, started to observe my own behavior and thinking like, hey, what is going on here? And it was obviously yoga and being mindful, being more kind, being more compassionate. And I think as a whole, it's simple and complex because yoga also means union. So for me, union means anything that does not create union is not yoga, is not life, is not the way I want to live. For example, if I start to have thoughts that exclude you from me, or even if I look at someone else and I start to think like, oh, they're better than me, or maybe I'm better than them, or this person doesn't have a right to be, there's a judgment to it, and there is a sense of like separation. It's not union. So always try to find something inside someone else that you can mirror yourself with, which always exists, because there's magic inside everybody, and everybody will have also an irritating side. So you can zoom into that, and any moment can be an irritating moment, or any, and that just totally changes your mindset, your perception. It's almost like I live on a new planet now. I've rediscovered life. Yeah. And I'm so curious and excited about it. And it's been years now. So after having done some yoga, as I said, I already had group fitness experience, personal training experience, and I had a really good job, and financially, like in the eyes of society, had everything sorted out with a house and a car and group insurance and pension, and like, okay, I can breathe, I'm okay here. And I thought, but this is not it. This is just not it. And looking into the future where I would end up being a partner at a big like international consultancy company, I was like, my soul is like, I'm not like, woohoo, yeah, my bank account will probably be massive. And I started to look at the people around me, and I also felt they were living a little bit in a prison in a way, because I think if you make money, and it's like they all went to quite luxurious holidays, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I mean, of course, if you work hard for your money, spoil yourself with what makes you happy. But I started to think, I started to unravel things. Sometimes I compare it like an onion, and you go to the core, and I started to realize that wasn't going to make me really happy. So I think in some way reached that achievement of personal achievement of like, okay, I've done this now for myself, and I just needed something deeper. And I've always, my first job was at the Ministry of Social Affairs and Employment, so I've always been passionate about making a difference, and that's all about diversity. So the humane effect and the element just had to come back in it, and making a difference. Making a difference. And for me, what I do, the biggest word is connection. For me, through yoga, you connect truly to yourself, which is not always easy, because sometimes your own truth, whether you're sad or happy, it's like, oh, I'm actually sad today. It's easier to go running and not feel that feeling, or to plan something more and more and more. And in yoga, you allow those thoughts and feelings so they can run through you, and then there's space for a sigh, literally. So that's like connection to yourself, and then through that, you can connect more authentically. Once you have your own inner truth, you can start connecting more authentically with the world. You can see the magic all around us, Not all the time. There's also days that life is challenging for me, but you have tools. Yoga gives you a toolbox of breath, movement, mindfulness, journaling, and you just grab the one where you go like, okay, that's the one I need now. And even within your practice, some days you go like, okay, I need a strong yoga practice.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're like, I need a yin practice. I need to cultivate some calmer energy for myself. I mean, it's magic. For me, it's absolutely, can't live without. I'm very grateful that yoga crossed my path. I do not know who I would have been.
Yeah.
Where I would have had a total different life if yoga hadn't crossed my path.
For me, I can relate to what you were saying. When I first discovered yoga, I kind of looked at it in a judgmental way. I wasn't interested in the physical aspects of it. I was doing other kinds of exercise and the usual things, and I didn't need to do more physical exercise. But I personally had quite a keen interest in mental stuff and mind and, more esoteric kind of topics. And yoga kept coming up, and I realized there must be something to this yoga. There's obviously benefits to it, so I need to find out what it is. But
yoga is kind of like self-therapy.
Yeah.
For me, it is.
But I struggled to get into it. I had to really push myself because I didn't enjoy it initially. I found I couldn't find, or now looking back, I obviously did, but I had to keep forcing myself. I didn't do one class and I was like, oh yeah, I love yoga now. I had to keep, because I was like, there's something here, but I don't know what it is, but let me just push it. And now looking back, the last year I realized I can't live without it. It's like, it's changed my life completely. And like you said, in the subtle ways that you notice how your days changed, how you're on the mat, and even negative thoughts come up, but you start to become aware of you're alone with yourself. And
the fluctuations of the mind, as we call them. But I think also for people to find the right yoga, like what is the right yoga for you in your life? Or, there are so many, it's like the colors of the rainbow, because yoga is also life. It's a practice of how to live. So from yin to power to kundalini to I started with Ashtanga, which was a physical super strong practice because I came from a fitness background. So if my first yoga practice would have been a yin practice, I would have probably drawn the conclusion that yoga wasn't for me.
And I think that happens a lot because I also...
Or the teacher or anything, Yeah. So it's a bit of a search.
It definitely is. And it's not very clear initially what it's about because it's like you said, you do one class and then you're like, this is completely not for me, but you haven't discovered all the other things and the different teachers. Even teachers different. So it's a very complex topic subject that is... It's the most rewarding thing I found that I will never stop doing. It's amazing.
And I think also it's a journey. I love in the Eastern philosophy how things are not linear; they're circular. So you might start with something, and then a certain type of yoga, and then for some reason you need a different type of yoga, or maybe even getting injured. It's very frustrating now. You can't practice, but then you have meditation.
Yeah.
So maybe. But there's always something, because in the end it's about mindfulness, it's observing your own reaction on your mat, and you take that off your mat, and you suddenly start to, analyze yourself, for example, through the chakra, just as an example. Okay, how do I speak? What kind of words do I actually use? My heart space, how do I behave? What do I, a sense of curiosity, what is love for me? Is that giving? Is that taking? Is that self-love? Is that loving my husband? Is it loving nature? What do I love? You can ask so many questions just going through all these different elements of yoga, and it's never ending.
Yeah, definitely. And it really does cultivate awareness. And it's hard to intellectualize what that is, but until you really start to experience yourself, almost looking at yourself in the third person and experiencing yourself, being more aware of yourself. And through moments on the mat where you're like, I can't do this is terrible, or this is boring, you start to notice things, and it's like a mindful meditation in many ways. It is to some degree, I suppose, a meditation. I was trying to get into meditation in my younger days, but I really struggled. And now I see how they all kind of link up, and they're all different tools, like you said, to create space and to be more mindful.
No, definitely.
I definitely resonate with what you said. As you grow and change, when I first started, I was like, I'll never do Kundalini. That's very weird.
Yeah.
And then you learn that breath work is a whole nother thing. And then, wow, okay, then you try that. And there's so many different amazing elements to it. And it's definitely a journey. I wanted to quickly ask you, so when you transitioned from going from a yoga teacher to, okay, I'm going to make this, because you don't just teach yoga, you do a whole lot more than just teach yoga. That transition, was it an easy decision to make, or what helped you make that decision and to really pursue doing it full time, no matter what, you're going to do this?
So for me, back then, when I took the decision, it was very scary because I had a really, really good job. And I even still remember the day I resigned. Oh, I was sweating so much because you're like, there you go. The thing that helped me is to make it smaller. So I said to myself, let's do this for a year. Let's try it for a year. Yes, I will resign my job, but I have 8 years of experience. So kind of backing myself up and going like, I can go back, and this, I've never gone back and I will never go back because I don't feel that's where I belong.
Okay.
And I've also learned, again, I think I never thought, let me answer your question this way, I would have never thought that I would end up in South Africa running yoga retreats, traveling normally to Bali, Europe on a yearly to 2 yearly basis, and living in a house with a view of the ocean. Like it's just but that's organically grown.
Yes.
And I think I also really connect with Dharma, like that is your purpose, like because of the background in economy and the work that I've had, I don't mind Excel spreadsheet and I don't mind organizing things. So, and then other yoga teachers, they might not like that so much. So at a certain moment I thought like, hey, there is a uniqueness to me, and not in like, oh, look at me, how amazing am I. There is a uniqueness to the steps I've taken in the past that have led me here, that have now, clearly for me it's clear that events and, yoga retreat, it's what I'm supposed to do because I have the experience. I've done project management, so I know how to do these things properly and not chaotically, and so I can really. I think that also adds on to that feeling of it's a safe space. It's well organized. I know what is coming. Kind of. I mean, there's always unknown, obviously, but I know what time, and it is on time, and the clients are not waiting around. That all adds. There's a good chef cooking for you. Where you sleep, if it's a lovely space. It's beautiful spaces. So it just made sense. I feel that it's the two worlds that merge into where I'm now, and. It's interesting to see where it goes.
I think this is what happens looking around you, and this life that you're leading now, and seeing your energy is what happens when you really love something, and you're so passionate about it.
You can not doing it is not a possibility.
Yes.
It gives me a goosebumps.
Yeah.
For me, like this year, obviously, or last year, has been challenging. Suddenly, I couldn't do what I loved anymore, or not in the way I'm used to doing it. And I felt my soul was like sad. So I just started teaching online. I was like, I have to connect with my people. I have to wake up in the morning. Or for me, I really want to wake up in the morning knowing that, I can make a difference, or I'm helping people go through difficult times.
Yeah.
And even being a teacher is such growth. You can only be a good teacher if you grow yourself, because you want your students to grow. But my students are actually also my biggest teachers. Their stories and their experiences. I think being a teacher on its own, regardless of what you're teaching, is already an amazing, job. Whether you're a school teacher, but then if it's yoga, you're teaching life.
Yeah.
Or it's wonderful.
That's. The teaching aspect of yoga, I must say, like I mentioned earlier, every teacher has a different element to them, and everybody's great in their own way. What I do love about your specific classes is, besides the fact that the energy is phenomenal, it's fun, it's playful, you also add in an element which I used to find when I first started yoga was there, but not so much anymore, where you actually take time and you say, okay, we're going to learn a new thing today, like spirit dive. I'd never known how to do that, and last class I did with you actually spent some time doing that. And I was like, that's amazing, because you're actually still teaching a little bit in the class as well. Because it can be quite daunting for a new person to come to a class and just have to figure it out if there's not really any teaching going on. The class is amazing. I've never been a person for online classes. The first one I did was actually your one. We were supposed to go to retreat yourself last year.
Yes.
And you were supposed to teach there. I think they did an online one, and we were at home, and I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yes.
And I'm not a fan of online, but afterwards, I think you still helped Tara with the handstands. And I was like, that was really nice. And Tara said, yeah, she was supposed to be at retreat yourself. And then obviously I met you and we did the 1-day retreat, and I realized the retreat is a whole nother aspect to this, and it's something that I would have laughed at a few years ago, like a retreat. That's why would you want to go on a retreat? But there's something special that happens at retreats. It does add something extra to the.
Yeah, for some people it's a reset. For some people it's a spoil. For some people it's just time away from the kids and having some. Lots of mothers they give so much that they don't have much time for themselves. It's also, I often get, so there's two things I often get with the retreats, which I find quite fascinating, having it done now for 5 years, is that there is, first of all, a perception that retreats is only for people that are like super yogis. They're like, yeah, I haven't done much yoga. I'm like, yoga, my classes are all level, so my retreats are also all level. It doesn't, and it's an interesting fact that that perception exists. And then I think also really often what I hear during the retreats and even during that day that you were there is that people are like, oh, I wish I could spend all my time with people like this. Yoga is the connecting factor. So yoga allows you to be open and kind, I think, and even when that International Day of Yoga the charity event I organized, but people are like, oh, I wish, like some even say, I wish my friends were like this. So they feel more comfortable with strangers that I met.
Yeah, there's a sense of vulnerability that people open up and share, and you're like, okay.
I can just be myself.
Yes.
I don't have to have a facade. I don't have to live according to a picture that I might have created in the past about myself as well, that you obviously also get. Like your family, your friends that you've had, they know you in a certain way. And even when you start doing yoga and now you become a vegan or a vegetarian or whatever lifestyle, it's also about your lifestyle. Yoga is not just that hour on the mat. And they see the changes and they might not understand it, and then you have to defend it, or and this is just like, okay, and there's no judgment. So if you want to have a glass of wine, have a glass of wine. If you want to have kombucha, have kombucha. And I think that creates that like sense of I can just be myself, and there's no topic that cannot be discussed. Or
that I find a common thread that runs through the conscious community, the yoga community, and where people get together in retreats or ceremonies, and it's that factor of being able to just be yourself, and it's rare. And I found that in that sense, in the community that you're involved in, and it's really great.
Yeah, it's that sense, again, going back to Dharma, which can be translated in many, many different ways, but it's your uniqueness. But it's also scary to go there because, when you speak about the inner truth, if you start to really, if some people say, oh, I wish I could take that career change. I said, okay, but what are you then going to do? I don't know. So what are you passionate about? You have to invest in that space of like, okay, this is my relationship to myself is important, my passion is important, what am I really good at, what am I not so good at, and just figuring it all out is not easy, but that I think, and once you find that uniqueness, it's just let it shine, let it be radiantly alive,
Once you find that thing that makes you feel radiantly alive, there's fear around that
of course.
Like fear of judgment, fear of what other people think, and fear of you kind of doubt yourself, and but it's so rewarding once you find that, and you do something that makes you feel alive.
Yeah, you feel you have purpose, and whether that's only in your own world doesn't really matter. If you wake up enthusiastic about something,
whatever it is,
doesn't matter. And I'm obviously living with intention. For me, as soon as I made that career change, money wasn't the most important thing. And I mean, you can only say that when you have a certain, I never had to beg for money or anything. Maybe also because I've always been quite responsible in the way that I live. But it's just a different, it's what do you live for? I saw this beautiful expression. Don't ask me what I like to eat. Don't ask me what I'm thinking. Don't ask me what I live for. Well, it's like, that gives me goosebumps. And it could be, my Dharma is being an amazing mother, and that is wonderful, and do that at 150%.
Yes.
And maybe in 5 years, your Dharma can also change.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
but it has to feed the soul, because that sparkle, that enthusiasm, that will just automatically, you know, you can't ignore that.
Yes.
So I often also refer to, like, if you have to make a decision, if it's a hell yes, go for it. If it's like not so sure, just don't do it, because that's not like you know. Even you sitting here, it doesn't matter that you had to drive an hour all the way out to. No, you couldn't, like.
I couldn't wait.
Yeah, and you're happy doing it, and you go home fulfilled. So you're swimming with the flow of life, and I sometimes the metaphor just swimming with the river. And sometimes even in my older career, it just took me so much energy, and I was good at my job, but it took me so much energy to do the things, because there wasn't that underlying, like, woohoo.
And once you find that the universe almost helps you, you flow, and like what's happening now, and I love your saying, it's collaboration over competition. And once you find your passion, money might not be your goal, but eventually you'll meet somebody through doing things together in a community like this, and then opportunities open, and next thing, before you know, things are there, and you're like, wow, how did I get here? But actually you were just in the flow of
because
that.
you are using the sense of union, because competition is excluding. I need to make more than you, which is, I mean, if you take that very, 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 very far, it's if you want to take the non-competitive way of thinking very far, it's very difficult. Because of course I'm also competing with a retreat to someone else. But then if you start to come into that space of fear, like, ooh, someone else is like also organizing a retreat, they'll have different people. They'll attract different people because they have a different energy. So even if it would be in the same venue with the same chef, which normally we don't really do because it's not nice, they'll attract different people, and that's fine. And it's not being scared to just be yourself and do what you love best, and that the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, I had the same thoughts going through my head, even starting a podcast. I was like, I've listened to podcasts for years. Every topic's been covered. Every conversation's been had. All the cool people have been interviewed.
But it's never been you.
Exactly. There's never been you. There's never been this conversation.
No.
They're all different and they're all unique. So it's realizing that once you get out of the frequency of lack and realize that it's just
unlimited.
It's unlimited.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
No, it is.
It's so cool.
I know. And I just also get certain topics as well. I remember when I started, again, thinking in a linear way, when I started my practice, I thought, okay, so I think if I can do that pose, like for example, crow, I'll kind of be there. You know, there's like a finish, like I'll like have done a good job with my yoga.
Yeah.
And then I started doing then I did my first teacher's training. And I literally in my head thought that there was like a little bit of studying to do. And then, you know, there's an end point and I'll know this thing called yoga. Once you start to open that pot, it's just like there's so much to study and so much to learn. And then you can go from philosophy to anatomy to mental behavior, emotional world, chakra systems,
Ayurveda and all
sound
kinds of
healing, how your voice, the vibrations, your connection to nature, the elements, Ayurveda. Doesn't stop.
It doesn't
and I'm
stop.
actually really happy because I'll be a student for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
There's always something new to learn.
Yes, you always learn, and there's always new things, and it's like then you discover, like you said, like then sound healing. You're like, what? And you realize a whole world of just that, and
and then if you collaborate, you meet people that know a lot about it.
Yeah.
You can learn from them.
Yeah.
And then if it's not like, oh, she's organizing a sound healing event, we're competing. No. People want to be healed.
Yes.
And some people heal at this stage in their life through sound.
Yeah.
Some maybe through movement and sound. It's wonderful when you start thinking like that.
When you start seeing the world
it's
that
also
way.
a relief.
Yeah.
Because there's way less pressure.
Yes.
And it's more fun.
Yeah. Definitely, it definitely is. I love that. Another thing I want to just, I suppose, pick your brain on. As a guy doing yoga, I must say now it's amazing. The other day I was in a class, and I'll never forget having this moment. There was 6 guys and 2 girls. And I was like, what? Things have definitely changed.
Well, then they've changed back to you know that officially yoga was for men.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Women were not originally, like thousands years ago in India, it was a guru, it was always one-on-one.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have group classes. And the guru would also help you on your spiritual journey, and also the guru would tell you, you're now ready for this pose. You wouldn't just go and try it, like stand on your head. They would first see if you're physically ready, mentally ready. Because, for example, standing on your head, it's also a sense of overcoming of fear. So there's a mentality around fear. So it's a one-on-one relationship, and it was for men only. It's funny, huh?
That's fascinating.
Because now often, I mean, it goes forward and back. Often, depending on the type of yoga, it will be more females. But I'm actually in Cape Town. I find there's a lot of guys doing yoga.
There is a lot, and I think when I first started looking into it, there was still more of that stigma around it being a thing for women. But I also do think that was because of the westernization of yoga to some degree, and the commercialization of it, and it being, I suppose, marketed as a fitness thing for women at some point. That's what I thought. But realizing there's so much more to it, and the history of yoga, and I still want to learn more about it. But there is a lot more to it, and it's not just for females. There is that stigma that yoga is for females, but now, like I said, has been broken down a lot, and it's nice to see a class full of males, and that I found slightly not difficult, but self-conscious. When I'd go to a class, I'd be the only male when I started doing this.
But I mean, if you think about the primal way women and men used to live, because that always helps me go to our original energies, right? So a man would go out hunting, competing with another man for that same piece of meat that he has to bring back to the family. The woman would stay at home and gather. So in a sense, for a man, I think this is just, I'm making it up as we're speaking, for a man to step into that non-competitive, compassionate space is I think harder than for women. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So for women that is a little easier, and they actually enjoy it. While for a man, probably initially, there will be a sense of resistance to it, because it just doesn't come that naturally to men to be well. No, not saying you guys are not kind, but to have that sense of like, just that softness and that taking care of yourself, because yoga in the end is a healing practice. It's about nurturing your body, your mind, your heart. So I think women in general are more nurturing. Maybe they're not always nurturing towards themselves. They're more like nurturing towards their family and their kids and all of that. So I think maybe originally men just feel a bit like, oh, what is this? This feels weird. Within the yoga energy.
Definitely. Starting, like, I never would have gotten into yoga had it not been for my interest in Eastern philosophy and that aspect of it. If I was primarily looking for a workout, I wouldn't have come to yoga because of that instinct of, I want to go to the gym and do weights, and went through that phase. But realizing that health, now doing yoga, is like, yes, there is that physical aspect, because you want to look after your body holistically, so that when you're older, you don't have, like, there is a massive physical aspect to it. Yeah. But I wasn't drawn to it primarily from that stance of, it's not a manly physical activity. Breaking down those barriers, I think, is a key thing for men.
It's nice to see so many men doing yoga.
It is.
And now all the kids already get yoga. I'm so jealous. I wish I was 3. My little niece, she started yoga at school when she was 3. Can you imagine how she will be?
That's incredible.
I love it.
Aren't you also involved in your NGO? You give back to kids and you do yoga with kids, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, International Day of Yoga. So as part of the teachers training I did in Bali, and one of the ways also, you have the 8 limbs that you can follow, the way, like the niyamas and the yamas is kind of like non-violence and cleanliness. There's lots of different things that we can study, and again, you can study yourself within that space, but giving back. So that's also a sense of Dharma, which is linked to the Eastern philosophy. Of course, people refer to karma. Karma is quite easy, understandable. But you're not giving back because you want good karma. It's not like you're getting credits with karma, but just giving back is one of the most beautiful things. I would really recommend everybody to find something, an hour a week, to just give back, even if it's helping your neighbor carry the groceries or something. It's really, really, really important to do. Yeah. So I started International Day of Yoga because I actually wanted to give back to yoga. I was sitting and meditating, and I thought, okay, if I can really give back, who or what or would I want to give back to? And I thought, well, if yoga was a person, I would want to give back to yoga, but yoga is not a person. So I thought, but there is International Day of Yoga. So to celebrate a day.
Is it a worldwide day?
Yeah, it's a United Nations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a day where the whole world celebrates the gift of yoga and what it does to the world. And then we started to also think about fundraising because I wanted to do it for free. But you're organizing this whole event, so donations were for Earthchild's Project. And Earthchild's Project is an NGO that I'm an ambassador for. They bring yoga to children in townships. And I mean, not just yoga, they bring other things like a connection to nature, and they have worm farms, and they make their own vegetables. So
that's amazing.
It's really, really amazing. And for me, if I think about, and probably for you as well, how yoga has changed your life. And I was raised in a very loving family and in a privileged life. So those kids love. There's no space, not a lot of space. Of course there's love, but it's not like conscious moments, and I think it's rough to live there, so they're dysregulated way more than I think other kids. So for them to learn about healthy eating, taking care of yourself, there's all these little songs that they sing during like the introduction of the yoga, and about cleaning your mat and being respectful to the other people, and that will be life-changing. That will be massively transformational.
Yes.
Just those kids. There's now one of the first Earthchild Project kids, I don't know exactly how many years, but it's probably been 10 years, 12 years, something like that. She's now done a teacher's training. So she's a yoga teacher herself.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really, really incredible. And yeah, I'd love to find out more about that, because it's cool. And I think yoga teacher training is something I would love to do one day. Actually, I've decided.
Yeah.
I don't know when. I don't even know if I want to teach yoga, but I do know that I want to go through that process of deepening my yoga practice and understanding it on a different level.
Yeah, I think yoga teachers training, there's also sometimes a weird perception around that, because people think that if you do a yoga teachers training is to become a yoga teacher. Well, 80%, probably more, 90% of the people, they do a yoga teacher's training and they don't become a yoga teacher. But it's more like, okay, let's say you really love golf, and now you go on a week golf course to learn more about the technique. Now you're doing like a yoga course for a month, which is not only knowing more about yoga, but also knowing a lot more about yourself. So I would almost call it a yoga training with potential to become a teacher. And that means, that anybody can do it.
Yes.
And it's really, really life-changing. It will blow your mind.
Yeah.
I can't wait for you to do it. And I'll
Tara
definitely want to be part of that journey.
Yeah, I would only do it with you, definitely. I know you do that. And Tara would love to do it, something like in a place like Bali or somewhere. I know you do that. Because I've heard from different people that it's like, if you're going to do it and invest in it, go do it in a place like that. That could be pretty cool. The yoga community in Bali is also quite overwhelming. It's amazing there. Been there.
The energy it's on its own on
wow.
the island is already quite unique.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, there are different places, but I have to say I also really like Bali.
There's something special.
How amazing could it be that we can spend a month there together?
Well, we're going to put that out there.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe this year, otherwise next year.
I hope so. If not this year, definitely
really
next year.
amazing.
But it'll definitely be on the cards. Tara also, she will never be able to stop doing yoga. So it's nice to be able to do something with that with your partner. It's nice.
It's almost for me, when I think about back, it's going to sound a bit exaggerated, but like as if there was an old Joelle before the teacher's training and a new one.
Okay.
It's like it is, I can't. It's changed the way I wake up, the way everything, the way I eat, the way slowly. It's not like you come out of the training and boof, now suddenly you're this new person. Yeah. But you learn all these subtle things, and you're starting to reflect about your friends and who you spend time with, and then you start to make different choices and different actions, and then after a while you actually have the life you really want.
Yeah, it doesn't happen like, oh, but okay, now it's happened. It's all these little things that happen along the way, and then you look back and
as subtle as the yoga practice is. You know, in the beginning when you practice yoga, it's like, okay, one arm there, one foot there.
Yeah.
And then after years you go like, oh, but if I do this with my big toe, oh, that feels so... So you're suddenly starting to zoom into smaller things, and I think you do the same with your life. Smaller things do become more important, like
yes.
spontaneously having a, like, who do you invite for a braai? Am I just inviting everybody, or am I going to be more selective? You become more mindful in your choices, in the words you use, and that is your world. So it starts to, you know, it's a two-way street. So it starts to change also the way people look at you and the way that they speak to you, and
Yeah, you start to become a lot more aware of every little thing. You don't just think, oh, it's not going to matter if everybody comes and we do that. It does matter, because
it does matter.
You start to realize how every little thing impacts your day. It either enhances it or it doesn't, or it allows you to get into that state of flow or not. And it is all these subtle little changes that you start noticing yourself make that happened with yoga. That's why I found it so hard to be like, okay, what is yoga? What has it done for me? Well, it's all the things that I can't think of that happen in between little moments that I can't. It just is amazing.
No, I know.
It's really
I know.
cool. Joelle, I want to end this off with, I know yoga has changed your life and it's been amazing, and I want to ask all my guests this question towards the end of the show, but is there any other practices or anything else that you found has been able to expand your life, or you recommend to people to...
It's going to be a tricky one, because I know what I'm going to say.
I know besides
exactly.
yoga.
Travel. Just traveling broadens your... You know how yoga kind of gives you a new perspective of life. You start to look at things from a different angle. You start to question things. You start to be curious. You start to get confused about, like, oh, but I was raised like this. Like, now I have to find my own truth about this. That's scary. I think travel does the same to you. You know, you come from a certain country with a certain culture, with certain habits, which within the yoga practice and within your yoga lifestyle, you look at your own habits, but there are certain cultural habits that are so embedded in you, you know, because you're just raised in the country that you were born, and as soon as you start to travel, you're like, oh, the way I do it, or the way my friends do it, or the way the whole my country does these things, it's totally different here, and that just starts to feed this sense of curiosity and just like, yeah, creating your own truth within all those different possibilities.
I couldn't agree more. It's been the biggest factor that I can also say has changed my life, and being able to travel, and you can noticeably see a difference. And unfortunately, some people don't have the means to travel, and it's really sad.
Well, I mean, in South Africa, you can do that within the country. Look at how many different cultures we have within this country.
I know.
So if you just go like, okay, maybe I can't step into a plane, and that also might apply for this year. Can I go and sniff up some different culture? We have, I mean, how many languages do we have here? Just explore that.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing.
It is.
It's really, and then I actually also obviously always, but that's more it's like nature, Mother Earth. She knows everything.
Yeah.
She does. Yeah. Sometimes you can just feel like a storm, and sometimes you feel like Mother Nature. Spend time in Mother Nature. If you can't get to your yoga mat, whether it's running or hiking or having a swim in the ocean or just lying in the sun or looking at a tree or listening to the birds, it's a very sensory experience as well, which yoga is as well. So, yeah, I think that kind of really is important to me.
I've definitely found that to be the case with, especially today, the world's quite chaotic. A lot of things going on, especially even in a busy city, and to take a break and reset, go into nature for half a day, and we've started doing that where we try to do like a hike once a week, and you feel like you've reset. Okay, you've come out and you're like, okay, like if you don't get that reset, it's
the wheel just starts to spin too quickly. It gives you one of my favorites. It might be nice to close with as well. One of my favorite expressions is you can only see the picture if you step out of the frame, which travel allows, and which being in nature also allows. You just take a moment to step out of your normal frame and just be in a different setting, and then you can look at it from a distance, and it allows you to have that observation, and that and then it creates more clarity. But,
Definitely. Sometimes a creative idea will come to you when you've decided to just be still, or be in nature, or be doing a meditation. And like I've struggled with meditation specifically, just to end off, sorry, I could chat all day.
It's such a cool topic.
It is,
I know.
it's such a cool topic. I've really struggled with it. What I've really found now where it's benefiting is you think you can work out everything logically and you got the plan, and then but you get a bit stuck, and when you decide to just be like, you know what, go into this quiet space, and sometimes you come out of it like, that was so obvious, I should have done that. And it's weird how
your mind starts to like, you know, like almost like wool or something, like a ball of wool. It starts to like become messy, and it just it's that distance and that moment of pause. I think we often underestimate how powerful stillness is. And for me, as you said, you struggled with meditation. I'm a busy person. I have a busy mind. I love busy, active things. And meditation took me 7 years of practice, of just sitting there with a clock for 5 minutes, feeling horrible. I'm like, what am I doing here? This feels uncomfortable physically and mentally. But now it's one of the most beautiful things I do every morning. Just start my day with 15 minutes of meditation.
Okay. Explain to me your morning routine. I'm very curious about that, because I've found morning routines make or break my day sometimes.
Yes. Well, there's a saying that also says the way you start your day sets the stage. It's almost like you there is a stage which is your day, which can be a beautiful, you know, a beautiful act or a beautiful story. Which players do you want in that play? How do you see yourself? So, well, my morning routine would be, because I live in Scarborough, I'm quite fortunate that we're quite connected to nature. So often my body wakes up when the light comes, like with the sun. I go to bed quite early. We wake up around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then for my digestive system, I take the little like vinegar kombucha thing just to cleanse and to get the right stuff going down there. Then I do a Nauli breath. That's the breath where you like suck in your belly a little bit.
Okay. Is it like a fire breath? Or?
It's not Kapalabhati. Kapalabhati is the pumping of the breath. So, you know, when you have breath restrictions, so you can breathe in and hold the breath. You can also breathe out and hold the breath. So it's actually an exhalation. Okay. And then, because the lungs are empty, you can actually vacuum your tummy.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that.
It looks a little scary.
Yeah.
But for me, that brings that sucks the front to the back of the body. So it's almost like you're like massaging your organs, and I can feel like, ooh, my intestine is a little bit like sensitive, almost like your muscles are sore when you've exercised too much. So if I've had a meal the night before that might have been a little bit more heavy, or I had a glass of wine or whatever, I'm like, ooh, my intestines, my digestive system have worked hard last night. I can feel that they're not totally rested, which then as a result, I'll take different dietary choices today, or, you know, drink a little bit extra water. So it's a check-in first with my gut. I've got like a little routine there, and then I sit for 15 minutes after my cat comes and joins me on my lap, which is just my favorite moment. And there's different meditation techniques. Some are on my YouTube channel actually. So if people want to try some different ones, but just sitting still is enough. I would say my tip would be to put a timer down. Because if you don't put a timer down, you constantly, or use an app or something, but you're constantly thinking like, how long I've been sitting here? Do I have to sit a little longer? And so just knowing that there is that timer, and actually just observing myself with those 15 minutes, sometimes after 5 minutes, I check the time. I'm like, why am I checking the time? That means there's something restless. Like I'm not totally comfortable sitting in these 15 minutes. There's no judgment to it, but I go like, okay, so why am I a little restless today? Did I not sleep so well? Am I irritable? Where am I in my month as a woman? Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I'm like, oh wow, that was 15 minutes went quick. And I'm not a better person on those days, but it just gives you a reference to then act upon, you know? If I feel super restless and I struggle to sit, I might have to just create some moments of pause during the day, because I know I'm irritable and I might get angry at someone, or maybe even start frustrating in like eating or something. You know, it's like very subtle.
It is.
And then I have a beautiful book where you just write a little intention every day. So when I sit, I often create, I find living with intention is very, very, very powerful as well. So whether that's like, okay, today I want to practice more self-love. Let's say I feel like let's say you're sitting there and you're having not so nice thoughts about yourself. I'm not beautiful, I did that wrong. And there's things from the past and fear from the future that is just, because some people think when you meditate you have to have like no thoughts. I don't know, but maybe it's happened for a split second, but I think you live in the mountains somewhere far, far away and have no external distractions to get to that point. So depending on what I feel is happening or what I feel I need to cultivate, if, for example, I have a very, 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 very busy week, I'm like, okay, calmness could be a good intention to stay calm. Or gratitude. If I start to feel that my thoughts are becoming a little bit negative, I'm like, okay, let's not think about the things that we're missing, which currently it's a long list, but we look at what we have, and it just changes your mindset. So gratitude is always, I think for people that start with meditation, gratitude is a beautiful and quite easy one. Just make a list of things that you're grateful for.
Yeah, I found that to be specifically very powerful. There's a specific frequency to gratitude that is.
You look at the world differently.
Yeah.
Grateful to see the beach. Grateful to,
It might even be as simple as I'm grateful for this cup of coffee. It's
Yeah.
small things that it does help. And
grateful for a lovely conversation.
Yes.
And then once you start to that energy starts to flow in a way that you want to share that. So even when I cycle here, I say hello to everybody. Why not? I smile at them. Hey, how are you, strangers?
Yes,
it's nice.
It is nice. I find that if I've done a good morning routine and I'm feeling that, then all of a sudden I want to smile and say hello to everybody. And I don't plan to, but it's a natural overflow of
you've already in some way charged a little bit of your own battery.
Definitely.
I feel.
Definitely.
Yeah, and then it's just set your day and can't live without. If some days, of course, like I choose to go cycling rather than sitting, but then I miss it. I miss it very quickly. I almost now miss meditation more than my asana.
Oh, really? Wow.
Well,
Okay.
the real reason for me to start yoga was totally physical, because I thought it was cool. All those poses were cool.
Okay.
If I now don't have time, I'd rather meditate than do my physical practice. And if you would have told me that 20 years ago, I would have laughed at you. I was like, no way, I'm going to sit on a pillow and prefer that over like running or something. Yeah.
It's amazing how things come full circle. I started for the opposite reasons, and now I'm loving the physical aspect of it. And I know you mentioned books earlier. I was wanted to end off with this. Thank you so much. Like I did tell you for that book recommendation, and I don't often. I mean,
which book was that?
The Tao of Pooh.
Oh yeah.
I've been trying to understand Taoism and Lao Tzu, and like I've read the books, and it's really hard to get into that. That book that you recommended was absolutely brilliant. It was amazing. So thank you for that. I know we're going to get going. We're going to do a yin yoga session now, which is amazing because it's going to balance off this day nicely. So
all our chatting, we will be quiet for like 60 minutes. It's going to be nice.
It's going to be awesome. And
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me in your house. And I'll put in all the links to all the stuff that your website, all that stuff if people want to find out more about you.
Well, it's my name for everything, Joelle Sleebos. So that's nice and easy. Website, Instagram, Facebook. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I look forward to the next one.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thanks, Joelle.
Thank
that
you
was
so
incredible. Thank you so much.